And then a little bit of a breakdown of the talks that I'm going to give today. So I'm going to start by talking about why search is important for retailers. Then I'm going to move on to the user experience and usability side of search and what best practice looks like. Then I'm going to talk a bit about the reporting and kind of analysis side of things and how you can measure how your search is performing, amongst other things. And then I'll move on to practical tips for optimizing search. And then lastly, I'll talk about what the future looks like a little bit for search. So why is search important? So the Baymard Institute, who are a bit of an authority around the kind of user experience and usability side of commerce, created this quote. So they do a lot of studies and user testing, and the general finding for them was that search was the preferred method of finding a product due to the speed and ease of browsing. And I wanted to show you these two kind of screenshots from Google Analytics. So the first one, so this is a pretty standard report, so it's just a site search report in Google Analytics. The first one essentially just illustrates that users who complete a search are 14 times more likely to convert, and the second one shows 6.5 times. And then I've applied a mobile segment here, and in this example, a user is 20 times more likely to convert if they complete a search. And then, so just before this presentation, I decided to basically take, I think it's 30 Google Analytics accounts, and average out some of that data. So on average, the conversion rate for users who have completed a search is 5.41%, which is 3.53 times higher than users who haven't completed a search. And the average number, or the average percentage of users who complete a search was 7%, which was pretty high. So we generally find that to be closer to 3 to 5%. And then the highest percentage of searches was 19%, which delivered 45% of that retailer's revenue. I did a similar process with mobile, and the conversion rate was a lot higher. So I think it was 7 point something, but I left that off this slide for some reason. And just to, again, illustrate kind of how search can speed up that browsing experience and that general kind of customer experience. So this is O'Neill's. They're a client of mine. They're quite a complex retailer. They've got 100,000 SKUs, 4,000 categories. And here I've searched for Wycombe Wanderers, which is a local kind of small third division football club in the UK. And I've searched Wycombe Wanderers. I've got 10 products here, which are all pretty relevant. And they're probably the 10 products as a merchant I would want to put in front of the customer. If I was to replicate the same journey via categories, so I'd have to go to the Mega Nav, I would go through to the clubs page, I would search, or I would use the alphabet filter on the clubs page. I'd then go through to the club landing page, and I would select one of the free PLP options, or product list page options, and then I'd get through to the product list page. And then I may want to refine the results down because there's a lot more results. But generally, you can see that it's a much cleaner experience. So if I was to search, it's seconds. If I was to go through categories, in this instance, it's minutes. And it's even more, that's even more applicable on mobile. So this is Made.com, which is a Clayview customer. Again, really complex catalog. They're a furniture retailer. And here I've searched corner sofa green. And on their site, if I wanted to find the same products, I'd need to go to the sofas category. I'd need to refine down by corner sofas, and I'd need to refine by color. So again, it's a much cleaner journey. So on to user experience and usability. So search bar placement and educating shoppers. So these are 4 big retailers in the UK. A number of them trade in the US as well, but they're primarily focused on the UK. So as you can see, all of these retailers have a really prominent search bar. And this has been an interesting trend that Clayview have definitely seen, where retailers are trying to push more people to search and go through search. And that, as I've already mentioned, comes as a result of that kind of cleaner user experience. And if you're able to kind of push people to be more advanced in what they're searching for, being able to kind of hone the product set right down to what the user's looking for. So 3 of these are good examples of retailers that have kind of used placeholder text to illustrate that you could be more advanced in what you're searching for. So using different attribute, brands, informational searches, etc. Same principle on mobile. So a lot of the customers that I've worked with personally with Clayview have been, again, pushing search as that kind of primary navigation route on mobile. So all three of these retailers are large catalog retailers. They all expose the search bar, so you don't have to expand it from the search icon or use a navigation. And again, they're kind of pushing it almost over the category navigation, just because it's a much cleaner experience. Just another example of the placeholder text here. So here we're encouraging the user to search for products, brands, or information, and we've indexed content results and informational pages as well. So optimizing the auto-suggestion overlay experience. So this is Nike, so they use a JavaScript overlay. It loads in milliseconds. You can see you've got search queries, and then you've got a set of product results as part of this. It's a much faster experience. So when I talk about speed, a lot of that comes as a result of using a JavaScript overlay. That JavaScript overlay, depending on how you are powering it, so whether you're using a third party or you've built on top of Magento's native search capability, can have different components. So these two examples, again, Clayview customers, have, so the first one, which is a retailer from Dubai, has filtering on the left-hand side, which is just powered by the product attributes within Magento. They have the ability to switch between grid view and list view. They have the ability to change the default sorting parameters. And then there's also an infinite scroll here as well, which isn't really a component, but it works really well for them. Then the second one has category listings, search suggestions, and customer service-focused content results as well. So this just shows kind of how you can build out those overlays a little bit more to ensure that the user doesn't then need to render another page, and they can get straight through to the product detail page as quickly as possible, or in the second case, informational pages. Ref is a really good example of a retailer that uses content search as well. So they have a lot of editorial content across different kind of micro-sites within the site. So I've searched for shorts. I have an initial set of product results, but I can then switch to stories, which is just kind of general editorial content. And then I can switch to travel, which is more kind of buying guides around travel. Modirect, so they use this same kind of JavaScript overlay format as Triano. But they've added an add to cart within the overlay. So if I was to search for something and then I get my product results, I can then refine down and I can add directly to cart. And again, just speeds up that journey. Search results landing page. So this is Made again. So they've kind of made an effort to replicate their product list page. So Made.com use their own template. They've styled the color swatches. They've honed in on those kind of three main filtering options, and then the actual format of the search results page matches the product list page. Helly Hansen's another example. So they actually retain the Magento results page, and then they pass the results or the ordering of the results in via API. But you can see, like, because they're using that type of implementation, you've got a consistent experience across those two different types of templates, and you have the same product card format, you have the same components of those product cards, and you have the same filtering options. Personalization. So Lowe's was the first example that I wanted to show of how search can be factored into a personalization strategy. So with Lowe's, so they actually use Adobe Experience Manager. But if I was to perform, so I initially went to this website, I searched for fridges, I came back a day later, and you can see that I've got recommended queries exposed within the template underneath the search bar. I've then got the banner, which has been personalized, and I've got two sets of product recommendations. And as I progress through the site, it's kind of gently personalizing content to me around fridges. So it's trying to essentially deliver exactly what I want from that initial search query, because via search, I'm essentially telling Lowe's exactly what I'm looking for. Made.com do something within the overlay. So I looked at a corner sofa. They've then provided a set of personalized recommendations on other products that they think will work well for me based on what I've interacted with. And then they've also got queries that adapt as well. JD Sports, which is a big sports retailer in the UK, do something similar, but they just promote the items that you've interacted with and the queries that you've used, and then they have a set of trending queries. Onto mobile. So I wanted to use this as an example of a retailer who have changed how they use search as a result of looking at the data. So there's a guy who's here called Mayer. He works with Soho Girl. we, a while back, looked through their Google Analytics, looked at how important search was to them as a business, and we also discussed an incrementality test that I'd done, and they decided they wanted to push more people through search on mobile. So you can see they've exposed the search bar and they've made it purple so that it stands out, so that it contrasts with the rest of the page. They've got the initial overlay, so as soon as I activate the search function, I have a set of products, I have a set of queries, so I'm straight away providing recommended products. And then the overlay has been styled in the same way as the product list page, and it actually looks like a new page without having to wait for that page to be rendered. And then I progress through to the product detail page, and I've got the sticky search bar, which is conditional. And I think this is a really nice reaction to the data that showed how effective search can be. Some measurement of search and kind of reporting on search. So this is probably the standard report I would go to if I was looking to understand how my search is performing. So this is just a search usage report within Google Analytics. And here I can see a comparison across different metrics and dimensions, how search is doing versus sessions that don't include a search. I can then apply a segment. So here I'm looking at search on mobile. And again, I can see things like the bounce rate, the exit rate, conversion rates for search against non-search. I can then go a level deeper within Google Analytics. So if you're using enhanced eCommerce, you can use the product list page report to look and then filter down on search results to then see queries, individual queries against these metrics. So product list views, clicks, click-through rate, the number of add to carts, the number of checkouts and unique purchases, and then ultimately revenue. This is a really good report. You'll need to adapt your implementation if you're using an overlay, but it's a really insightful report around the value of individual queries and, again, the overall performance of search. This report is the search term report within Google Analytics, and here you can see things like exit rates, refinements, and average search depth, amongst other things, against specific queries. And then within Magento, you obviously have the search term report as well, which gives you individual queries, the number of results, the number of uses, and then you could go on to apply, if you're using the native capability, you could then go on to apply redirects and synonyms. The most important report, in my opinion, if you're looking to optimize search, is a zero result search report. So you can, if you're using a third party, they'll have this built in. So you'll be able to see which queries people are using without any results. So you can either use a third party, or you can track this in Magento by looking at the number of products that are being returned against a query, or you could use Google Analytics. So you could use an event to track instances against the zero result page. Here, so this is an example of a report that shows product effectiveness, essentially. So it shows which products have been sold, the queries that have been used to result in those transactions, and then revenue. And again, you'd probably need a third party for this, but most of the third parties that I've worked with include this report. So optimizing Magento search. So Magento's native search capability, like pretty much every platform I've worked with, isn't great. So and you wouldn't necessarily expect it to be great either. So here I've searched for birthday gift on one of my clients' websites. They are 50% gifting, 50% self-use. The search is powered by, essentially, they're just matching the title of the product, and on some of their sites they use a long description as well to show the results. So here, for example, I've searched for birthday gift. Because the word gift or birthday gift isn't within the name of the product, I'm not getting a great result set. And you can see here they do have some people searching for those kind of keywords. Same principle with Amiga. So if I search for leather strap, they have a lot of different watches that have a leather strap, but the only result that I'm getting here is an accessory, so an actual leather strap. And then in Leicester, so the Leicester City Football Club website, so they sell a lot of kids' products, but if I search for children's, again, I get no results, and obviously that could be managed within Magento via a synonym, but it just kind of illustrates how more contextual awareness can add value. So moving on to tips, so 8 actionable tips. The first one, so build the optimization of zero results into your kind of ongoing merchandising processes. So again, there's various different ways you can get this information, but you should, at the very least, be creating synonyms around kind of high volume search terms that don't return any results. And if you don't do this, you're guaranteed to have some. Same principle applies with URL redirects if you're just using a standard search function without an overlay. This is an example from O'Neill's where they had a lot of demand for Under Armour online because they sell it in their stores. They don't sell it online, so we just created a synonym at this point, so within their search solution around base layers, and then we're able to serve a really good result set, and we actually drove quite a lot of additional orders via this. Tip 2, so boosting logic is a basic requirement, so the ability to kind of merchandise results for different keywords and generally is a basic requirement. So here, for example, for a period of time against the keyword Dublin, I assigned that bear as a hero SKU. So they were selling a lot of these bears. They had a lot of inventory, so I wanted to be able to assign that as a hero SKU to get rid of them. And then the other two products have been assigned a global boosting score. So I'm essentially boosting the visibility of those two items globally to try and get more people to click them, to get more people to see them. And then the other three are changing almost in real time based on how people are interacting with the catalogue, and with the products that are getting the most clicks, add to carts and purchases are being kind of promoted in almost in real time. Tip 3, so you should have the ability to boost a SKU globally, or at least assign hero SKUs to keywords. So I've boosted the first product for this keyword, and then I've also assigned it a really high global boosting score, so it's ended up getting a lot more clicks as a result of that, and in this case it was a lot more relevant than the product that natively would have ranked there. And the other thing to bear in mind here is that if I relied on the machine learning here, it probably wouldn't be number one, but often business logic is kind of equally as important, because if you rely on machine learning alone, it's not going to be able to factor in things like margins, inventory, and the kind of business metrics behind the catalogue. Tip number 4, so think about product attributes you're using for search. There's usually some good examples of when you're kind of defining that underlying business logic of other metrics you could have in there that could help to make the search results more effective for your business, or trying to promote products essentially based on different reasoning. So here, 2 examples are gross margin and seasonality. So I'm using those are in rules to boost specific items, or to boost specific groups of items based on the margin and based on the popularity at that point in time. Some form of contextual awareness is important. So here, for example, I've typed in mower. I've got lawnmower oil. Here, I've searched for gifts on the Muji website. And I've got no products, even though, again, their products lend themselves really well to gifting. So natural language processing is something to look for if you're looking at third parties. So essentially, it's the principle behind enriching your catalogue. So adding kind of relevant synonyms and adjectives across your products, and then extracting more meaning from the query and more kind of intent, and just generally trying to get more from what the user's looking for, and then matching those to be able to kind of provide a broader or associate a broader set of keywords with an item. Tip number 6, so improve handling of error queries. So O'Neill's have a set of personalized product recommendations. Depending on your implementation, if you don't have this kind of capability built in, you could look at using something like Nosto on your results page that could be conditional based on there not being any results. You could also, here as well, we have assigned custom error messaging to some of the higher volume items where we can't provide results. And again, that can make a really big difference to try and kind of cross-sell and just explain the reasoning to a user. Next is a good example. So they kind of explain the situation, and then they provide a set of categories, which I believe become personalized as I browse the website. Tip number 7, ideally you'd have some form of automated popularity. So as I've already talked about, that kind of machine learned capability, or that kind of logic that's boosting the visibility of items based on clicks, add to carts, and purchases. So that's a good way, and generally I find that a third party for a certain level of retailer will pay for itself by reducing the amount of manual work that will need to be done around optimizing search through that machine learning. Tip 8, voice search. So it's really new in e-com. JD Sports have had this for about 18 months now, and essentially they've just got the ability to use Chrome's voice search function within search, and from what I've heard from them, it's worked really well. Klaviyo have just rolled it out across the product, so we've got a number of users, a number of customers using it, and this stat I saw recently I thought was interesting. So even though this is relatively new, obviously the usage of things like Siri and Google Assistant and things like that aren't. So 40% of millennials are already making a voice search prior to completing a purchase, which I thought was really interesting. Definitely not something I would have expected. And then lastly, what's next for search? So better use of personalization or more integrated personalization at a one-to-one level. So this is something that most search companies are doing at some level, but kind of seeing that more and it being a little bit more advanced to allow for different user journeys. Voice search, so I think that will become more prominent, particularly on mobile. A more connected experience, so different technology partners integrating to provide a better search experience. We've been kind of scoping out integrations recently of a couple of personalization companies, which can add a lot of value, and us providing them with queries around a specific customer gives them a lot more context, and us getting more visibility of what users are doing outside of search adds a lot of value for us. And then better performance as well. So performance continues to improve. It's quite a competitive space and people are trying to provide a better product. So performance is one area that's got really strong in the third-party search space. And then that is it.
Fantastic. So we had some great content there. It ran a little bit long on the presentation side, so that gives us time for like 2 really special questions. Who has them? Don't be shy. He's a really nice guy.
Not that nice.
Anyone? All right. Here we go.
Who's your favorite club in Premier League?
Sorry?
Who's your favorite club in Premier League?
Oh, right, Liverpool Football Club. Good question.
That's an excellent question. Anyone else? Maybe something not soccer related. Search optimization, best practices. Got one. All right.
Oh, God.
Yeah, sorry. The question was more about the voice commerce that you spoke about. Are there some leading, easy ways to integrate voice into your existing search, or if you use Klaviyo, or how can people tap into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a lot easier than people think it is. So the capability of performing the query is available within the browser. So it's just about kind of hooking into that. So Klaviyo have rolled it out now so that it's a native feature. And I think a number of other providers have a similar capability. So yeah, I think it's just something you need to look at from an integration perspective and how you can kind of use the browser. Obviously, looking at voice search generally, you need to think more about the catalog and how you're allowing for queries and how you're kind of broadening your product data. But yeah, it's not actually that hard when it comes to implementing voice search within the site.